Hi everyone. My name is Anthony Chen. Some of you might recognize me, some of you might not. It doesn't matter really. Today I'm here to talk about Ilo Ilo. The Chinese title for Ilo Ilo is called 爸妈不在家. Some of you might have heard about this film. This film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in the Director's Fortnight in May this year. The film won the Camera d'Or, and then it subsequently went on to many other festivals, picked up a lot of other awards. And recently, the film was nominated for the Golden Horse as well, and it picked up 4 awards, including major awards such as Best Feature Film. Thank you. I'm actually going in a different direction today, actually. I think most people have read, perhaps from the local media, from the trade journals, from foreign media about this film. I think there's a lot of curiosity about this film. Some of you might have read about the journey of making this film. Some of you might have read about the success of this film critically. It has, I would say, unanimously gotten very well, a lot of accolades, and it's very well reviewed, I think, around the world. But today I want to talk about this whole dichotomy that we have always pondered, I think, as producers, as directors, as filmmakers, about that whole line, and divide between commercial films and art house films. And I think it's a tough subject. I'm not gonna say that I have simple answers. I think I'm here to open up the discussion, and I think this film, it's an excellent example to talk about this. So I'm going to talk about Ilo Ilo this time, not so much from a creative side. I am the writer, the director of the film, but at the same time, I call it the independent film of an independent film. I was a producer as well. I had 2 other co-producers, and I was very heavily involved in looking for finance, looking for money, funding, all the way up to, I was very hands-on with the marketing of this film in all territories. So I would like to break the film down into numbers. And I would like to ask that as much as possible, especially the attendees, if you could try not to take photographs, that'd be great, because I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. So a lot of these numbers, they're real figures. I think they might be quite sensitive. So if please don't snap it on the iPhone, post it on Facebook. I think the sharing is important for the country and for the region. So Ilo Ilo in numbers, a new case for critical and commercial success for Asian independent film. Let's begin here. So, this is probably what you have read. The film, over 6 months after the premiere in Cannes, it won the Camera d'Or. It went on to pick up 21 awards in different festivals around the world. Just 2 weeks ago, it picked up 4. It was nominated for 6 Golden Horse Awards. It won 4 awards in Taiwan, including Best New Director, Best Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress for the actress Yo Yan Yan, and Best Film, which was a surprise. I think a lot of curiosity peaked during that time, because all of a sudden there was a small little film from a small little country, and for the first time in the 50 years of the Golden Horse, the best film was awarded to Singapore. But I'm not so interested to talk about awards today. Let's move on to other things. Let's talk about the budget of this film. I think sometimes it has been misrepresented. The problem is, that's the budget of the film. The budget of the film, it's actually US dollars 500,000. Sometimes I think the local media has been reading it as 500,000 Sing dollars, but that's not the case. So it was made for 700,000 Singapore dollars, which is US 500, $500,000. I would say for a country like Singapore, it's not, it's a modest budget, but it's not very, very low budget. There have been films that are made on 100,000, 200,000, but it's not also touching the 1 million mark. So I would say it was good enough why it was good enough, because it allowed me to shoot the number of the days that I could shoot. I think we shot 25 days plus another 2 contingency days on a smaller crew, which I think it's a good shooting schedule for Southeast Asia, because a lot of films are actually made now for much less days, like 15 days, 16 days, 17 days. I've even heard of like 10 days. Just really quickly, there are no grants involved. You know, it's very hard for a Singapore film to actually get global grants like the Hubert Boss, World Cinema and all that, because we are classified as a developed country. So this film was fully funded out of investment, so that there are no grants involved here. And also, it's good to note that about half of the budget came from the Singapore Film Commission. We happened to be the last film on the old scheme, so it was still an investment. Shortly after, a year later, all the schemes were converted into grants. So this is an investment. About half of the budget came from there. And then there was a big chunk coming from Ngee Ann Polytechnic. For those who don't know, or those who are from outside of Singapore, this is a film school in Singapore. This is the first film school that I went to. I went to film school twice in Singapore, and then later on I did my master's at the National Film and Television School in the UK. So a big chunk came from them. It's the first time an education institution has actually put money into a film. And I'm not sure it's ever going to happen again, because when the news came out, every other alumni went to ask for money from the school, and it's so hard to ascertain and to make sense and to justify who gets the money, who doesn't. So I think it's going to be a one-time thing, and it's probably not going to happen again. And then we have the final budget was completed with private investment. We had 4 individuals, each coughing up a small amount of money. Not really small, but you know, it was, I think, modest enough for them, 50,000 Singapore dollars each. And I think they were prepared to lose it all. Which is interesting, because I think in terms of the financing for this film, it was, I would say it was very clean and it was very sleek. I was very, very wary of getting the wrong partners involved, because I wanted a lot of creative autonomy on this film. I wanted full director's cut. I didn't want decisions on casting and all that to come from the parties. In fact, from the inception of the film down to the script, all the way until post-production, all the way until the edit, I would say that I had full control over the whole film. So, you know, we had a sales agent, Memento Films. They are based in France. They take on about 8 to 10 films a year. They are a boutique sales agency in France. They've represented a lot of award-winning films from Cannes, Berlin, and Venice, such as Still Life by Jia Zhangke, which won the Golden Lion in Venice, such as A Separation, which a lot of people know, the Iranian film that won the Oscar, and you know, it started its life in Berlin. It won the Golden Bear in Berlin. It also represented The Class that won the Palme d'Or in France. In fact, in a funny way, I was courting them, they were courting me, and eventually they came on board just as I was in post-production editing the film. The film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May this year. And let's look a little bit at the world sales for this film. The film has been sold to about a little bit more than 20 countries, including North America, UK, France, Benelux, Sweden, Switzerland, Portugal, Turkey, Brazil. Let me just tap a few more times. Colombia, Ecuador, Central America, Hong Kong and Macau, Taiwan, China. China was sailed not too long ago at AFM. South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Thailand, Australasia, and of course all airlines. There was an all-airline deal for the film. Because the film was made out of Singapore, as producers we held Singapore and Malaysia. In fact, we have just like an hour ago, you know, got our deal going for Malaysia, and it's going to be out on the 2nd of January next year. Singapore, it's been out in cinemas since the end of August, and I'll go in depth as well. It's good to note that actually most people said, oh, the film actually sold after the film won the prize, right? People see the prize and they want to buy the film. But in an interesting way, a lot of the sales, at least half of the sales, were completed literally 2 days after the premiere, 3 days before the award ceremony. I think what happened was there was a buzz going around after the premiere of the film. It was very well reviewed by the trades and also the French papers. We had one market screening. The sales agent was very conservative. They didn't want to splash too much money on booking too many screenings, and it was packed. So it was very, very packed, and the next day after the market screening, phone calls were just coming in, and a lot of deals were made. In fact, I regret certain things a little bit because I feel that some major territories were sold too early, and they could have been sold for easily probably twice what the MG was. For those of you who are in the business, you know MG means minimum guarantee, and then whatever comes after, if it makes more than the MG, and then you would see money coming back. But that's how much they pay for the film, and they can't take it back. So I'm going to look at the different territories that we have opened at, and the kind of income and revenue that has been generated so far. I'd like to start with France. It was released on the 4th of September. We are currently still running in France. It's our 12th week in France. It's quite amazing, actually. We opened on 80 screens. By week 3, we expanded to 110. This is probably one of the biggest release of an Asian film in France. Total admissions. For those of you who know France, actually in France, they don't really like to count box office dollars. It's always an admission. So as of last week, it's 82,980. That is, according to the distributor, it translates to about 600,000 euros. TV sales, they have generated I was told about 120,000 euros of TV sales, and that is for cable and cable and free to air, and I think there are 1 or 2 other channels that they're trying to sell, so it might go over that. And just to get a sense of comparison, because for me, I just wanted to get the numbers out. I wanted to give you some form of context. It's not about which is the better film, what is right or what is wrong, but just to compare, because there have really only been a handful of films released in France from Singapore. Literally, I can use like 5 fingers to count, maybe a bit more, maybe 6 with my film. So in 2012, Tatsumi, the number of admissions, 5,900. You can see the difference, 82,000 compared to 5,000. My Magic was about the same. That was in the first Singapore entry that was in the main competition in Cannes, competing for the Palme d'Or, 5,009 as well. 4:30 by Royston Tan in 2006, 4,600 admissions. Be With Me did very well. It was actually a hit that year in France, 30,000. And then many, many years ago, 997 12 Stories did 9,500. So you can see, actually, this film made, in terms of admissions, it grossed more than 2.5 times, close to actually 3 times more than the last Singapore film. It's now the highest grossing Singapore film in France. And yeah, so let's look outside of Singapore, to give a good idea of what about the other strong art house Asian films that have done well in France. So to give a very good example, there was an art house hit, Tokyo Sonata by Kiyoshi Kurosawa in 2009, that did 95,000. So actually this puts our film as one of the higher grossing Asian films actually in France. Where is this? Okay. That's a PowerPoint thing. Okay, and so for Singapore, we released on the 29th of August. We opened on 15 screens. We were out in cinemas for 11 weeks. I think it's a good point to note that actually most films from Singapore, in fact, all the films from Singapore that had played in Cannes before, selected for Cannes, they have always been released on very limited screens, 1, 2, at most maybe 3 screens. And I think here there was a bit of strategy involved as well. The potential distributor, Golden Village, they wanted to see a DVD screener very early, just as the Cannes selection was announced, but I refused to give them a screener. The last thing I want is for them to watch it halfway, go to the toilet, come back, and then maybe not watch the film. I got them to keep their time, because they were going to be in Cannes to buy films anyway. I got them to keep their time free for our premiere in Cannes. So they were at the premiere, they saw the response. We had our meeting the next morning at 8 o'clock, and there was a commitment to release it. This is a medium-sized release in Singapore. It's not like wide, but it's definitely ups the game compared to the other releases for the art house films in Singapore. We were out in cinemas for 11 weeks. At the end of 11 weeks, that was a few weeks ago, we clocked 900,000 Singapore dollars at the box office. And then currently we are on the second week of the re-release. I think our distributor, Golden Village, they saw certain potential, to tie in with the Golden Horse. So a few days before the award ceremony, they actually re-released the film. And now there's a sudden surge after the awards. I think I have to really thank the media for that. All of a sudden, when the film won in Cannes, people couldn't be bothered, at least not enough. But all of a sudden with the Golden Horse, I think it's a more prominent prize in Asia. People were very, very curious. And over the weekend, we crossed $1 million. In terms of TV sales and minimum guarantees for DVD, it's about 55,000, a little bit more than that. And hopefully if the DVD sells well, we'll see just a bit more, but you rarely see so much here in this part of the world. In comparison, so just to get a sense of the numbers of the other films from Singapore this year, 2013 Singapore releases, Taxi Taxi, that's a big local comedy with 2 very recognizable faces, Gurmit Singh and Mark Lee. That took in 1.43 early in January. And then there was this really, really phenomenal success. It's the first time a local film has clocked that kind of numbers. Jack Neo's Our Boys to Men Part 2, 7.9 million. This is the first time we have actually seen that kind of figure in Singapore. So obviously, we are not quite there with these films, but I'd like to actually show you some other commercial films that were released much wider. They had more screens than us when it started, and I would say that they were literally aiming for the commercial market. They were packaged as a commercial film. Ghost Child, in the Chinese title is Gui Zai, finished its run on 542,000. And then we have Judgment Day, 306,000. That was also a more commercial film. And then That Girl in Pinafore, which was released on National Day in Singapore. It was sort of a musical. That made 553,000. So actually, if you look at the numbers, of course, there are some other films that were made, but they were either released maybe for a few days or 1 or 2 weeks, or they didn't even make it to the cinemas. But looking at this, as of now, there are 2 other films that are currently running in cinemas, so I can't say for that. But as of now, in terms of Singapore figures, we are ranked number 3 on the box office after Our Boys to Men and Taxi Taxi. Whether or not the cinema is now extending our run until next week. We might still extend if there's still great response. The numbers just came in for yesterday and today, and it's still holding strong. It feels like a brand new release, which is really interesting. When we started our release, I think we were number 5 on the charts, and now just last week we got back onto the top 10. We are number 6 on the charts again in our re-release. So this is the commercial side of things, but if you were to look at on the art house side of things, I thought it would be great to just look at some numbers from the past few years. Also films from Cannes. Singapore films selected in Cannes. Tatsumi made 21,000, I think on 2 screens or 3 screens in Singapore. Sandcastle made more than that, actually, 55,000 on 1 screen. Actually, that was a strong release for 1 screen. I think I would let the numbers speak for itself, but I would say it's something very unique has happened here because unlike some territories, in other countries, in Hong Kong and Taiwan and in Western Europe especially, having a Cannes logo, it's an added plus, it's a bonus for your box office. In Singapore, you don't want to have your Cannes logo on your poster because people avoid it. People avoid it like the plague. They sort of, there are certain perceptions about, oh, it's going to be too art house, it's going to be very slow, it's too abstract, I don't understand it, yeah, it's probably not a film that I would enjoy. But this film has sort of changed certain tried and tested perceptions, which is very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to see how far the film can go in terms of the box office in Singapore. I think it probably is the longest running Singapore film this year. That's you can see that. But maybe I should talk a little bit about this. You can see that the Singapore poster is very, very different from all the other territories. And, the distributor and me and my producers, we had long, long talks about the poster. And we were trying to figure out how can we get people into the cinemas, So we were thinking, this is the kind of poster that, everyone has been attracted to for the past, 15 years in this country. So we went for it and we departed from our very lovely Cannes poster, which, our French distributor loves, and we came up with something else. It's more light-hearted, it's more caricature, it's completely hand-drawn, and we're hoping that that would actually bring the unconverted into the cinemas. And in fact, I had a discussion with my producers, and we're still trying to figure out if we had used the original poster, will we have achieved this? How important is a poster in a film? Because I'm starting to get feedback that everyone hates this poster because I hate it too. But we just had to do everything. Eventually the decision was made when Golden Village did a poll in the office. Everyone had to vote for two posters, and eventually the vote was to go for this. So I'll be very curious if we had to do it again, if we could wind back time, if the film would do as well, if we had kept to, the more art house poster that was presented in Cannes. This is the ad for Taiwan. As you can see, it opened on 8 screens, literally last Friday. So the film has opened in Bangkok in October and in Thailand. It's a small release, it's a 1-screen art house theater, and I think what we love about it is because it's a very small art house audience to begin with, and what we like about that cinema is what they do is they sort of rotate the films. So the film plays for much longer, but it's rotated with some other art house films. I don't have the figures for that, and I feel that it's probably quite negligible. The good thing is, it's very, very well reviewed by the papers and the critics there. So looking at Hong Kong released just a week before The Golden Horse on the 21st of November. We are currently at the 2nd week. The box office, as of 2 weeks, it's 519,000 Hong Kong dollars. Later you would see all that in Singapore dollars. It's roughly about 100,000 Singapore dollars. That's just the 2nd week. The TV sales, they are just about to sign off the contract with this. It's about 500,000 Hong Kong dollars. That's about 100,000 dollars Sing dollars. Of course, or 80,000 Sing dollars. Of course, we haven't taken into account DVDs and all that. Taiwan, we opened literally last Friday on the 29th of November. It is the first week of the release. We came on, I think, number 8 on the charts, which is quite good for a small release. In fact, I was told that for the first weekend on such a small release to cross 1 million Taiwan dollars, it is actually 50% of what the distributors actually predicted. I think this is the golden horse effect, 43,000. I spoke to the Taiwanese distributor just yesterday, and he feels that the film will probably end its run on about 4 to 5 million Taiwan dollars, which probably would be about 200,000 Singapore dollars. The TV sales, it's not a lot for Taiwan. I think they have too many channels. It's about US 20,000. Which is 25,000 Sing. They're just about to sign off as well. Okay. So let's look at all the figures together. I'm not gonna, because there's a lot of sensitive information, so I can't tell you all the net numbers. But, I want it to be as transparent as possible. So let's look at the gross income so far. Actually, a lot of territories have just started their release. So it's very hard for me to say, but the minimum guarantee from world sales is 300,000 Sing. This is not the total box office. This is how much that, no matter how well the film performs, we have that. Of course, minus the commission and marketing by the sales agent. All of this is in gross. Singapore box office as of now, it might go up in the next 2 weeks, 1.04 million. France box office, 600,000 euros, that's about 1.02 million. Hong Kong box office as of now, I'm not going to do further predictions, I'll say as of today, 80,000 Sing. Taiwan box office, 43,000. Other TV and ancillary sales from the different territories, so far it's 325,000 Singapore dollars. I think it's interesting, why I was interested to share this, because I think as an industry, probably those of you from outside of Singapore, you guys are more familiar, but I think as an industry in this country, and both the industry itself, and I think even the Singapore media, I think we have very, very little knowledge about how recoupment and how a film could actually bring in receipts and income from outside of Singapore. I think we are very insular looking. I read a report not too long ago on one of the newspapers saying that, the film is not going to recoup. And I was like, yeah, but the film just made so much money in France. But because we're just looking at local numbers, and I think there isn't enough knowledge, there isn't, and also because I think that there hasn't been that kind of precedence for Singapore, because most of our films are released only in Singapore and Malaysia. Occasionally, we do have some small hits in Taiwan and Hong Kong, but that's very rare as well. So, all of you might be familiar with the magic number. The magic number is to make back your investment, you probably need at least 3 times of your budget. Most distributors, most producers probably know that. So, our budget was 500,000 US, 700,000 Singapore dollars. If I times 3 to that, that would be 2.1 million. So because all this is gross, and it's great because that's why I said times 3, because that would buffer for every other deductible as well. So if you look at the total number, if I were to add this up as of now, I'm not making any further projections. This is what income we are getting now. You're looking at 2.8 million. So, if by that theory, which actually I would say, according to a lot of producers I know, it's quite true that if the theory is 2.1, I wouldn't say I'm sure, but I would say there's a very, very strong chance that the film is going into recoupment very soon, of course, when the money and checks start coming in, and it might actually go into a profit. So next up, what else is coming up for the film? 4th December, which is today, we open in the Philippines. We open on 25 to 30 screens in the Philippines. I just came back from premiere in Ilo Ilo. That's the title of the film. It's actually a place, a province in the Philippines, and a premiere, a big 1,600-seater premiere in Manila. And there has been very, very strong response, good positive response from the media, from the local film community, a lot of pent-up frustration as well, I think, because everyone is very curious about this film. A waiter in a restaurant came up to me and said, "Are you the director of Ilo Ilo?" And my son have been telling me about this film. You know, we first heard about it because he was in Canada and was like, "Why are you hearing about the film in Canada?" And then later on we found out because I'm from Ilo Ilo. So I think that there is a very good chance. I'm very curious to see how well it's going to do in the Philippines. Hopefully by the weekend we have some numbers. In January, Sweden and South Korea is opening. UK and US, they're still figuring if they're going to do February and March. Everyone is sort of half betting on, oh, is it going to get an Oscar nomination? Is it going to get on the short list? The other territories, everyone is still waiting just to see. China, we still have to wait for the quota, so it will be at least another 6 more months. But we have at least another 15 over territories to roll out. The airlines started playing actually just last week, the film. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. And hopefully our DVD for Singapore and Malaysia is out over Chinese New Year next year, the 23rd of January, just slightly before Chinese New Year. Whether that might affect, the other territories, I'm not sure yet because piracy is scary. So I think I would like to end it on a note of discussion because I think this is a very interesting example of a very, very small Southeast Asian film from Singapore and how it has actually managed to not just get the kind of accolades, the kind of recognition, the kind of critical acclaim all over the world, but at the same time, it's doing very good, very strong sales. And yeah, we are actually making some form of nice box office figures, which it's really unprecedented. I'm not going to say that this is a formula because I don't think there's a formula because this film wasn't designed for the festivals. This film wasn't designed for the box office. There was no design. The film actually came from very, very pure and simple intentions. I wanted to make a very personal film. It's a film that I wanted it to be the most honest, the most sincere one, since it's my first feature, and it really it was born out of that. So it wasn't, yes, there was some strategy involved in how we talk with our sales agent, how we got the local distributors involved and all that, but apart from that, it wasn't designed. I think more and more now, I think in this region in Asia, we're all trying to design certain formulas, certain genres, certain try and tested casting so that it would work at the box office. But it wasn't that. And I'm not going to say that this can be repeated very easily. I've been warned a few times by some distributors and my sales agent that, this might just be, a one-shot thing. We might not even get another repeat of this in the next 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. I would love that this would be repeated. I hope that there will be, the baton would be passed. There'll be other young filmmakers making their first feature, good films, local stories, but with a strong universal appeal that could actually do well critically and hopefully commercially as well. I am slightly pessimistic, but at the same time very optimistic. So it's a little bit of both. I'm not sure as well, but I'm hoping that this continues. Whether it will, I'm not sure. And I'm not going to say that this is a big box office success. It's not. It's not going to rock your world, but at least I think with most film funders, investors, I think the last thing they want to see is can you not lose my money? And I wouldn't say that we are definitely going to recoup now, but looking at the numbers, actually we are probably on the way towards recoupment and probably going into some small profit, which probably it's the first time art house film in Singapore could actually perform in such a way. Thank you for listening to me, and I would love to go into questions. And I would like to invite my co-producer as well, Uni, to join me for questions. But please, this is as honest as my film. That's how transparent I am. So please, don't go around taking pictures and post it on Facebook. I don't think that's the best. I'm not sure if my sales agent and my distributors will like that. Very interesting. I love this. Is this working? Oh, wow, it's working. Okay, shall we go for the first question? I think it's very interesting to talk about how I met the sales agent. I met the sales agent 3 years ago at Tokyo Filmex. I was pitching the project. Now it's called the Tokyo Talent Campus, and before it was called Next Masters. And the managing director of Memento Films was on the jury. The jury was preceded by Ho Xiaoxian, the Taiwanese filmmaker. The film actually won Best Project then, and a relationship continued from there. Every 3 to 6 months they would email me asking to read a script. I actually had a script, of course, but I pretended and I said, oh, I don't have a script yet, and I just fended them away for, I wanted them really badly because I love them as a company. I love the kind of films that they represent, but I just pretended I didn't have a script. So 3 years later, they wrote again, as usual, and they said, oh, have you got a script? We like your feature, we like your premise, we like your shorts, we want to see, how is it, going with the financing and the funding, and I said, I shot the film. And they said, oh my God, you shot the film. And they wanted to see the cut. They wanted to see the first cut. We didn't send them the first cut. We didn't send them the second cut. Eventually, it was, I think, a version that both, like all of us, the editors, me, my producer, we were all happy with. And we sent it over a weekend. I think they replied us, they loved the film, and they felt this could be a possible Cannes selection because they feel that, of course, they are French, and they feel that the French will really like the film. Actually, we can see from the French box office that the French like the film. So they came in at that point. The version that they saw was 100 minutes. The version that is now playing, it's 99 minutes. Basically, there was very, very minute changes, very, very small little things just on the pacing of the film.
I think for us, we were not really shopping in terms of like a sales agent to partner with. We looked at people who had good reputations, who had a good eye for films, and Memento, you can see from their catalog what kind of films they go for. They also have a really good and caring team that really get involved and discuss with you a lot of things. One of the interesting things we talked about was the title, I think, and we discussed it for a very long time, in fact, whether the title would do well in different territories and things like that. But in the end, I think we stuck to our gut, and the name remained as Ilo Ilo.
Yeah, I remember we had a 2-week discussion, and every day we were Skyping because Uni lives in Bangkok. I was at that time, I think, in Taiwan, and they were in France, and we were just fighting for 2 weeks over a title. We came out with like 25, 30 different new titles, and because we were thinking like, who knows what Ilo Ilo is? Like, no one would know. But the great thing is, eventually this title became a plus for us because it was so iconic. It has never been used before, and every buyer on the market could just remember it. You just flip the catalog and you just remember the film.
We we did get a small MG. I think that's quite not so common these days, I think, for Southeast Asian films. So I think we feel quite lucky, and that's mainly because they believed in the film. And in fact, before we went into this deal a couple of years ago, when I met them separately from Anthony in Berlin, they were like, oh, do you know this filmmaker, Anthony? And then I already knew that they liked his films, short films a lot. So from the beginning already, we had a good relationship, and they already had a good impression of what Anthony can do as a director. So that really helped us a lot.
Shall we take the second question, the one in the middle about financing for independent filmmakers? Maybe I should share a bit of my experience. You know, I think we are in a country where actually I would say all, if not most, companies are really geared towards making very local, mainstream commercial films. You know, designed for the box office in the local market. So for me, I think it was very hard to find the right company to make this film, and of course, you know, me being my stubborn self, I wanted a lot of creative autonomy. I didn't want to be subjected to, no, you can't do this, you can't work on this budget, you can't have that. I just wanted to make the best possible film I could. So, in fact, for me, we actually started a company just for the sake of making this film. Whether it will continue, we don't know yet, because when you start a business, you start having accounting and auditing and taxes, and you know, I'm a filmmaker, I don't want to do all that. But the truth is this, unfortunately for independent filmmakers, probably here in Singapore or maybe from the region, you just have to go out and do it. You know, because no one is going to help you, you have to help yourself. And hopefully you meet the right team of people, you meet some like-minded people who support you, who guide you along, and hopefully, you know, toy with you through the whole process.
I think it also helped that this project had been in several film markets, project markets, so it gave it a bit of a sort of, I guess people know about the project, and as well as Anthony his short films had been in Cannes and Berlin, so people know how he can direct. Of course, it doesn't necessarily translate to a feature film, but I think it definitely helps the reputation of the director.
I would say that if it isn't a commercial film, I think if you want to make a first feature and it's very commercial, it's very easy to go to one of those companies, you know, here or in the region, and they would make it quite easily. But if it's something which is a little bit more art house, a little bit more personal, a little bit more with your own sensibility, then perhaps it's, oh my god, I lost my train of thought. Perhaps it's very important that you have built a sort of portfolio before you actually start the financing process, because the only thing you have are your shorts, the only thing you have is your accolades or recognition from the festivals that matter, because people do look at that, especially if you're not making something which is intrinsically commercial. I think at the same time, it's important to go into like a project market only when a project is ready. I think a lot of times people just come out with a one-page synopsis and let's try our luck. But once the wider industry, the regional industry, or the world industry has a bad impression on your project, and they have a bad impression of you as this person really isn't so serious, you know, he's just here to just play along, and yeah, but they can smell that, and I'm not sure if one should actually go about, you know, putting into a market a project that it's not ready for the market yet.
And also, I think in general our budget was not that high, so I think for us, I think it's quite difficult to find private investors. So we were lucky, obviously, to be around when you know, the Singapore Film Commission has their feature film grant and investment schemes. And then we were also lucky that Anthony was an alumni from Ngee Polytechnic, and at a very specific time, they chose to invest in their very first film. I think that is it's just the right place at the right time as well. And then we had some private investors who really liked the stories, but you know, I think if we had to go with private investors alone, it would have taken a much longer time.
We might be still funding the film now,
Yeah.
like finding financing for the film now, I think.
Yeah.
And also I think it's important to keep the budget not small but modest, because when it's too much, there's a lot of pressure on the director, especially on the first film, and you start having people wanting to make decisions on cast, on story, the ending, you know, the pacing of the film and things like that. I think it's very important to keep it modest but good enough so that you can get the kind of performances out of the actors. I see myself in my filmmaking. Performance is a big part of my work. I think, in fact, actually one of the most rewarding part of this journey is that my actors have been nominated for awards. Some of them have won multiple awards for their performance, and for me as a director, you know, I feel like I'm a part of that, you know, working with them on that, but that requires time. And if you're going to shoot in 10 days, you're not going to get the kind of performances. You know, what you're going to get is, it's just okay, passable, mediocre, but it's not going to be great. And if you really want, you know, a certain, when they say production value, I don't just mean it looks glossy and beautiful, but it's really down to performance, the nuance, and the final things. And if you haven't got, you know, I was advised to make this film on 250,000 Singapore dollars. That's easily a bit less than, like, that's easily like 3 times the budget I had, less. But I didn't want that, because I knew without the right shooting days, I couldn't get what I want in terms of the precision of the camera work, in terms of the precision of the performance. And then I think we have another question. If you're referring to me, I can't answer you. I wish it's not. I'm very worried that it is. But, well, I think with the accolades, at least, I think I can have a good teaching position at any film school around the world with a good pay. So if it all doesn't work out, you know, I could go and teach in the UK, in Singapore, I don't know, in New York, somewhere. I hope it's not a one-hit wonder, which is why I'm very, very careful about the next project. I'm not gonna just jump into any project now. I think there are a lot of sexy possibilities at the moment. There are certain projects that I've been looking at, and I'm not just saying yes to anything right now, because I think it's very important. I think the second film, it's tougher than the first one. It's about proving yourself that you are not a one-hit wonder. And hopefully I would have a film in not more than 2 years. You know, that's the ideal situation. But I hope that that film would probably be have a bigger canvas, and but at the same time it would have the same sensibility and that same kind of strong directorial integrity. You know, so it's definitely not going to be a big sell-out commercial sort of film. It's not going to be that.
Yeah, and I think we always talk about how a filmmaker's career lasts a lifetime, and it's important to you know, follow your instincts and build a good body of work. So I think for any director, that is the hope.
Yeah, I think we've got all the questions on this fantastic piece of technology on this iPad, but how does it work here? Do we take other questions from the floor, or that's it?
I guess in the meantime, I also wanted to acknowledge our other producer, Ang Hui Seung, who's not here with us today. And Wen Hong, who's our associate producer, who's done a lot as well. So it's you know, a small team, but everyone's doing their part.
I don't know. Do we continue? No, we have to wrap up, basically.
So I hope that the session has been sort of useful. It's the first time I'm talking about the film really in figures, really in numbers. We have never shared it that way. We have always talked about how hard it was, creatively working with the actors. But I think that sharing is important for film and cinema in this country to move forward, for film and cinema in this region to move forward. I don't think it could be easily replicated, and I will actually warn against, oh, let's just make another Ilo Ilo, let's make another film with an Indonesian make. A Hollywood director was telling me, you know what, you should try and sell the American remake rights, because this could be an American middle-class family with a Mexican maid. And I was like, really? Yeah, so, yeah, if there are, I don't think we have any more questions, you know, for today, but hopefully this is useful, and, you know, later on we're happy to share more if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you.